Hey there. In this video, I want to cover the community object in Salesforce, what we use it for, and then just some fields to be on the lookout for so that you understand when you're looking at the community itself, what some of the fields themselves mean. So, right now, I'm at a community. And like always, if you want to navigate to communities, it's very rare that you would find yourself going to a community in this manner, but I'll just show you. As always, we'll be up here on our banner. Click down. You can look down, and under cases, you'll find communities. And then I'm just going to click on Blue Soul, which is one that I was on. Actually, you know what? Let's do Mansion at Bala. All right. So, first off, what is a community? A community is just a representation of an apartment complex slash community, which is why we call them communities here. And so, when you're looking at a community record, what you're really just looking at is an apartment complex. Um, so, here at the community, in this first section here, you'll see the name. If we're projecting that we're going to sell to this community or the community is already live, you will see a launch date as well. So if it's already live, that's the date that it went live. If we're actively trying to sell that community or service via an opportunity, it'll be the projected launch date. Community short code, these will only be in here if a building is in fact live and on our service. Um, this community short code is what the operations and account management teams primarily use to refer to these communities as, because it is a unique 3-digit code for fetch. So, like the name Mansion at Bala, that is a pretty unique name, but there are quite a few communities that might share the same name, such as like Flats on Main. We will have quite a few Flats on Main, but we make sure that the short code itself is unique. Then we have the market. We've chatted in depth about the market field. That's just where it is located. And then the warehouse is going to be the warehouse that is currently servicing that community. Up here, you have the owner. The owner of the community, if the community is live or in about to go live, that owner is going to be the account manager that is assigned to that community. The regional account manager is, in fact, the regional account manager that is overseeing that region, hence the name regional account manager, and is also in charge of the account manager who's overseeing the community. And the RSM field, that is going to be the salesperson who sold the deal. Next is the stage field. So these are quite important. This is quite important. So the stage, if it is stable, that means it is live and has been live for over 90 days. Onboarding means that it is live, but it has been launched within the last 90 days. So our onboarding experience is 12 weeks long, just under 12 weeks long. So it's actually a little less than 90 days. It's 84 days. Pre-launch means that the community has already been signed, but we're just waiting to launch it. Pending signature, that means the contract is out for signature, but not yet signed. Proposal sent essentially just means that we've sent them a proposal, but we're not in these later stages of actually sending them a full contract. Inactive means we really haven't done anything with them yet. Launch canceled and churned essentially mean that they canceled service. Now, you'll see some of these like proposal sent that matches up with the opportunity that we talked about previously. Pending signature essentially goes to contract sent on the opportunity. So what's nice is when an opportunity is linked to the community, as you move the opportunity through different stages, it will update the stage of the community. So once you send a proposal, it'll mark the community as proposal sent. Once you send a contract, pending signature, and once you won the opportunity, it'll move this to pre-launch. Once a community is in pre-launch, it is essentially the account manager's job to take that across the finish line, set the training date, finalize launch date, et cetera, et cetera. All right. And then active, that checkbox will just mean that it's been signed and it's still live. And then launched, we'll say yes if it has been launched. We have the legal entity name right here. This is quite important. That is the name that goes on the contract itself. So that's going to be like the LLC or the limited partnership, however they structure the ownership. Then we just have basic information here, like what's the phone number, email address, etc. The on-site team, that will get filled out by the account management team. And then here we have some details about the community. So the occupancy state, we have hybrid, lease up, and stabilized. Stabilized means that it has all of the units have essentially been leased already. Doesn't mean that they're at 100% occupancy, but it's been live for quite some time. Lease up means they've just finished construction and they are now starting to lease those units for the first time to get that occupancy up so that hopefully they can lease all or almost all of their units. And hybrid is unique to how we bill. This is if we meet a community somewhat halfway in between those two scenarios where maybe it's 400 units. They've already leased 200, but they're still leasing those other 200 for the first time. They're trying to get people to move in. That's what we would consider a hybrid state community. And the reason that we do hybrid is because we're going to bill those separately. So the ones that are already occupied will be billed in a different revenue schedule than the ones that are not yet occupied. And we'll touch on that in a pricing video that should also be on the intranet. Structure type, garden, mid-rise, high-rise. Garden style, that is essentially your open air communities that are max 3-4 stories high, usually spread out with multiple buildings. High-rise is really going to be anything over 6 or 7 stories high. And then a mid-rise or like your common like 4/1s or 5/1s. That some have mixed space retail on the first floor and then have units above them for residential. Very common now in urban core and even out into the suburbs. Property class. This is a bit subjective, but this is like in ALN, you will find this laid out in this exact way, whether it's an A property, B property, C property, or if it's a concierge, we call it concierge. Locale, urban or suburban. We will cover these differences in a Salesforce Maps video. But the locale, whether it's urban or suburban, matters to us because it is more expensive to service the urban core communities rather than spread out suburban communities. And then demographic, 99% of yours are going to be standard unless you're working in the student vertical. Right now, we do have university off-campus and on-campus communities that we will service. Units, obviously a very important field. That's going to be the number of units that comprise the community. These corporate unit, affordable unit, and down unit fields. Some of our communities will have corporate units that we will not bill for. We might service them, we might not service them, but that's where you would display this here. So if they had 5 corporate units and they're not billable, this is how you would show that. If they are billable, then you would check that box. Affordable units, same concept. Sometimes someone will have like 20 affordable units that we're not going to charge them for. That's how we would show this. And then down units, same thing. What down units are is, say there was a flood maybe, or a fire, or they're doing reconstruction, or renovations. We'll consider some of those units to be down units. And then beds, once again, this is for our student housing vertical specifically, but we have this in here because the building might be 276 units, but because in student we bill on a per bed level rather than a per unit level, we have to have a bed number in here. We're going to cancel that. And those are pretty much all the fields that you need to know on the community. Now, a couple other things that I'll show you. Um, buildings. Buildings are going to just be a representation of how many, it's plain and simple. How many buildings make up this apartment complex? I'd say 85% of them is one building per one community. So there's one large community. But some of those garden style communities are some of the ones that are in a very dense urban core, like say San Francisco. They might be comprised of multiple smaller buildings. And so just on the right, you might see that there's one, two, three, maybe four buildings that all make up this community. Just want to point out that's what that is. Cases. Cases are, there's three different types of cases that we have, and it's how the account management team tracks certain processes. So you'll see this first one is an onboarding case. This is what we used to help track the onboarding process for this community from once the contract was signed until once we launched it and then got out of those first 12 weeks of onboarding. Escalation, that's another type of case we have. Those are going to be client issues that come in. So whenever an on-site team has an issue and reaches out to the account manager, we will track that in Salesforce as an escalation ticket. Those are different than resident tickets. Resident tickets that we get like from our CX team, those do not live in Salesforce. And then the other type of ticket or case that we have, and it's pretty rare, is a transition case. And those we create so that the account management team has a place where they can track a warehouse transition if it needs to occur. And when that happens is, say we have two warehouses, I'll take this exact example, Philadelphia. At the time I'm recording this video, we have one warehouse in Philadelphia. We might soon outgrow that warehouse, and we then need to make a business decision to get a second warehouse. Depending on where we get warehouse space, it may make sense to rethink about what communities get serviced from which warehouse, because now that we have the second one, some of the communities actually might make sense to move from Philadelphia 1 warehouse to Philadelphia 2. So if we do make that decision to transition some of them, the account management team will track that via a transition case. Next, we have the sediment, which this is a running track of how well this community is performing from the account manager's view, from fruition. So as you can see, we do a snapshot of this every single week, and then we give a score for the sediment. So they started off, it looks like this community was doing pretty well. And then as of mid-July, they started to really hit their stride, and we think that they're doing quite well. Sediment is scored from value of 1 to 4. So you'll see here 1 is winning, 2 is good, 3 is okay, and 4 is rough. If a community is at 3 or 4, the AM is required to put notes in the section so that you can see, okay, it's not doing well. Me as the sales rep, I would like to know why that is. And then as always, the activity section is on the right-hand side here. So you can see where the RAM and or the account manager have been reaching out, doing in-person visits, monthly visits, etc. So that's about everything that we have to do for community. Really quick, if you ever did have to create a community, I'll show you really quick. You can go to communities. Over on the right hand side, you'll see new. And then this is when you would start to fill out that information. And as always, anything with a red asterisk is required. So I'm just going to put test community. You usually wouldn't put the launch date because most of that goes into the opportunity. There's no short code because we have not yet launched it. The short code comes from the product team. The stage will always be set as an active because you're creating the community either before you create the opportunity or at the same time. So you'll let the opportunity update everything in the community. You just have to put the bare bones in the community. If that makes any sense. So we need a name. We need the market. Warehouse would be great. And then obviously we would like to have the address in here. Obviously zip. I'm just going to put some stuff in here. And then down here, you'll see this is also in red. We need to know the occupancy state. We need to know what kind of structure it is, the class. And the class, don't stress out over that too much. The only thing that we must know is if there is a concierge, you have to make sure that you mark them as a concierge property. Urban or suburban, and then demographic is pretty much always standard. Then we are going to make sure we need units. And that's about all we need to create a community right there. So the name, the market it's in, the warehouse that's going to take care of it, the actual address, and then some of these details around the community. All right. Awesome. Well, I hope that cleared up some things for you. And yeah, just make sure that you're dangerous enough to where you can navigate Salesforce and understand what everything means while you're in there. So thanks for taking the time to watch the video. And as always, reach out to your revenue operations team if you need any more clarity or some one-on-one training. Thank you.